because they need workers with skills. They need workers who can read a blueprint, who can read a manual, who can do something, you know, who can read a sketch for to do furniture or whatever, or machine tools. They need engineers, they need technicians, they need skilled labor and semi-skilled labor. Under the old technology, they don't need us as much as they used to as workers. They don't need us to have skills. They've completely written off the black youth in this country. Completely. And this is not just recently, this is a while ago. And they've written off a Latin youth to a large extent also, and Asian and poor whites. Because there's no percentage in it for them to pay all this money for public education. For the broad mass of the people whom they don't need to develop as a working class, as a skilled and semi-skilled proletariat. It's over. They're cutting them adrift. So these budget cuts, certainly they are forced on them by the crisis. But on the other hand, it's not something that they're so upset about.
That's right.
Some of them are pleased to do it.
Yeah.
And that's where you come to the charter schools. That's where you come to the race to the top. See? It's because if they have a school district in the black community or in the poor white community or in the Latin, how many of those children in that school district do they really think they need? In a system where your horizon is McDonald's,
Right.
or your horizon is Dunkin' Donuts or Walmart, or to be a janitor, that's the best they're going to get. Why give them an education?
Right.
Why pay teachers good money that could go into the bank's vault? And that's what's behind the witch hunt against teachers and teachers' unions and against public education, is that the system is in decay. And they don't need the workers the way to do the things they used to need us to do. Compare this to when 1959, I don't know how many of you remember this, maybe this is brand new information. But the Soviet Union in 1957, what? Put up a space satellite. You remember? Okay. The first space satellite in history. The first time the human species was able to launch something into space successfully and have it orbit the Earth. The Pentagon freaked out.
Yes, they did.
And the whole ruling class freaked out. And before you knew it, there were scholarships, fellowships, contests, money for science and math just pouring into the entire educational system. You could go through it in a minute. If you could just do a little math and do a little science, you could just whoosh your way through school. All over the country. Eisenhower did it. They just generated an entire educational system overnight because they were afraid they would lose out to socialism and they would lose out in the military race. This is what they can do if they need to do it. They needed it. They needed a whole generation of technically, mathematically, scientifically educated workers of all levels. And they created it with money. Money, which is what it's all about. And they're taking it away now by taking away money. And it's part of the stage of capitalism that we're in. I could beat them up all night, but I think we better start talking more about what to do. What to do. What to do. Well, if you listen to the Obama administration, the answer is to give $787 billion before and now $50 billion to the capitalists to create jobs.
Lord help. They ain't creative.
Now, it wants to have construction. $50 billion. He wants to do some roads and stuff. Okay. But let's see what's going to be left of that $50 billion that gets into the pocket of the workers. Contracts have to be let out. The capitalists have to struggle over these contracts. They have to pay out the subcontractors. They have to pay bribes and graft to get the contract, and they're going to get it out of the $50 billion. Then they're going to have to take their profit. They're going to have to get their best customers and make sure they get a profit. And by the time the whole thing comes down to it, there'll be some construction workers building some bridges and some roads, but the masses of people will still be unemployed.
That's right. That's happening now.
It's like saying, okay, I'm going to give $50 billion to the bosses. Let's see if they can get some wage slaves and keep them alive for a little while. There's nothing that obliges them to keep the workers if they hire them. There's nothing that obliges them to take them and fire them. There's no, I mean, you're handing over money to the capitalists who create this crisis in the first place. That's not the answer. Not even under capitalism. Now, I want to go back to the 1930s and back to the fact that in the 1930s there was a thing called the New Deal. Did anybody hear about it? You know what the New Deal was? Riot insurance. It was riot insurance because the masses were striking and fighting and demonstrating and taking over buildings, putting people back in buildings, marching on Washington, having strikes, general strikes, municipal general strikes in San Francisco, in Toledo, in, where was the other one? In Flint, well, it was the Flint sit-down strike. So, as riot insurance, and in order to get the capitalist economy off its knees, the Roosevelt administration inaugurated government jobs programs, real jobs programs. You didn't go to some capitalist. You went to the state office or the municipal office where the employment was, the Federal Employment Agency was. You told them what your skill was. You showed that you qualified, and so forth. And they gave you a job. You could work only 30 hours a week. The money they gave you was like double the survival wage, basically. It was supposed to be the prevailing wage. I guess in some places it was, in some places it wasn't. In the course of it, they built hundreds of thousands of miles of roads, tens of thousands of bridges, schools, hospitals, every kind of public facility you can think of. They built dams, they built electric utility stations, they created great workers' art, which was a big part of the WPA, was art, the art, theater, painting, poetry, and so on. They financed the whole creative generation in order to keep the capitalist system afloat. The WPA, which was the most important of the government programs, there were others. By the way, they put youth to work. They had a national youth service. They put several million youth to work. They put 8.3 million workers to work between, I guess, 1935 and 43.